So I am partial to our good old invocation / homage prayer, incense burning. So if we could just chant that together. Incense burning, all spaces filled with a fragrance. All Buddhas smell from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. Nice to see everybody here today. In thinking about what I was going to share today, many things were kind of present in my mind. And I sought kind of a common thread to see, if there was one. And kind of what came up was right view. And the Buddha says, what is right view? It's knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard to the origination of stress, knowledge with regard to the cessation of stress, knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. This is called right view. So all these things kind of fit under that category. There were several things that that have been present kind of in the atmosphere. I was reading, that can just be turned off, it's okay. I was reading the Lamb Rim. Joe, if you just turn that off, it's okay. Yeah.
He won't, he's an engineer. And a man.
Thank you.
But it's fun.
Thank you for trying to sort that out.
Needed a reboot that. So we've got one.
One of the things that I've been kind of coming to, and that's been in the atmosphere, is really trust in the teacher. The Lamb Rim really starts with this and emphasizes it greatly. And I don't know that we have talked about it as much as commensurate with its importance. Honestly, I don't think that we can get anywhere without it. And I really want to spend a little bit of time starting out with that. The Lamb Rim says, of all the personal instructions, do not give up the excellent teacher. It's the prime instruction. Thus, the excellent teacher is the source of all temporary happiness and certain goodness, beginning with the production of a single good quality and the reduction of a single fault in a student's mind, and eventually encompassing all the knowledge beyond that. Therefore, the way that you initially rely on the teacher is important. A single quality. I loved thinking about that. That's just, think how many single qualities we have gained in listening to the Dharma through the teachings of our teacher. And think how the ripple effects of that occur in the goodness in the world and in what we ourselves are working to attain. Another thing that it was pointing to is the defining characteristics of the student who relies on the teacher. Aryadeva states in his 400 stanzas, it is said that one who is nonpartisan, intelligent, and diligent is a vessel for listening to the teachings. The good qualities of the instructor do not appear otherwise, nor do those of fellow listeners. So he says that one who is endowed with the three qualities is suitable to listen to the condition or to the teachings. He says that if you have all those qualities, then you will be able to listen to the teachings and they will appear as good qualities, not as faults. So if we're seeing something as a fault, we actually have to consider ourselves. And are we actually vessels, good, appropriate vessels for hearing the teachings? Are we able to discern accurately what we are seeing and listening to? Nonpartisan is like not obstructed by bias. So we think we have so many biases, and it's so important to look at those. Like, what is that little thing that is saying, I don't want to hear this right now, or this doesn't make sense, or I don't know about that. So looking at ourselves, nonpartisan, intelligent, and diligent, it makes a good vessel for the teachings. Chandra Kirti's commentary says, after adding the three qualities of the student to the two qualities of being focused and having respect for the teaching and its instructor, there are a total of 5 qualities, and then these 5 qualities can be reduced to 4. 1, striving very diligently at the teaching. 2, focusing the mind well when listening to the teaching. 3, having great respect for the teaching and its instructor. And 4, discarding bad explanations and retaining good explanations. Having intelligence is the favorable condition that gives rise to these 4. And then being nonpartisan gets rid of the bias, the unfavorable condition of taking sides. So we want to investigate those qualities to see if we're suitable to hear the teachings. And if they're incomplete, he says, we must make an effort to obtain the causes that will complete them before our next life, because we are setting the conditions to become free through these teachings. And most everything is one, reliance on the teacher, but reflection on ourselves. Where are we getting in the way? I thought this was helpful and humbling to read about the general indication of the attitudes needed to rely on the teacher. The attitude, which is like a dutiful child. Students who rely properly on the teacher should always give up their self-assertiveness and instead act in accordance with the will of the teacher. Well, that one had me immediately feeling humbled because so many times in my time with Venerable, especially back in the Thrifty Treasures days and in some of the early days of setting up the academy, I was willful and, assertive in my own ignorant way, I would say, pushing back. And, that I needed to see that. And I need to now see it's a growing thing. Where I now see that is actually harming only myself and my own ability to receive the teachings in a way that I can fully accept and embody. So giving up our self-assertiveness, that doesn't mean we don't have opinions, but we recognize the wisdom of the teacher, and we've committed ourselves to the teacher, and the teacher has committed themselves to us. And so in doing that, we say, I trust you and I will follow you. The attitude, which is like a diamond, is number 2. It says, this means to make the relationship between teacher and student close and stable, not to be split apart by anyone, demons, bad friends, and the like. So treasuring it like a diamond. The attitude, which is like the earth, means to take on all the responsibilities of the guru's or teacher's activities and not become dispirited by any of the responsibilities asked of you. And let it be a privilege, not a burden. Another thing that I've been thinking about is how extremely rare it is to, one, be born a human, of course. Two, be born with the conditions to come across the Dharma, to learn the Dharma, but then to find a teacher, a qualified teacher who embodies wisdom and compassion and that teaches the true and correct Dharma. So we don't want to become dispirited. We want to see it as the true, rare, and precious privilege that it is. Number 4 is 6 attitudes, how to assume responsibilities. The first, an attitude like the foothills, means that any suffering that might arise does not sway you. Of course, we're certainly swayed in the course of cultivating these qualities, but we really want to move towards true stability. The second is an attitude like a worldly servant, means to perform even the worst tasks in their entirety without wavering. I think about all the many students of the Dharma across thousands of years, hundreds of years, who didn't have the internet. The Dharma was in certain places in the world and not other places. Beings gave up everything to take those teachings to more people. And then the people had to strive diligently to access those teachings. They sometimes had to endure much hardship to reach them. And then they had to ask many, many times the teachers to share the teachings with them. And we have them right here. So I think that makes, sometimes it can make us a little bit, we might not recognize the value because they're so available. So I think it's really helpful to think about how rare and precious it is. And even though the teachings, many of the teachings are available online on the internet. I know I studied and read and found my way for many years, reading books and sitting in meditation groups, and I didn't learn much of anything. I really needed a teacher to help me know what's important to read, know what's important to study, know how to enact it in everyday life, apply the teachings, and then deal with those moments of weakness that come up where we're questioning everything, to hold you in that place and help you see real truth. The third, an attitude like a sweeper, means to eliminate completely all pride and all feelings of superiority and consider yourself to be lower than your guru. And again, this one was humbling because I know I've had many prideful moments, and it's really good to look at that. The fifth, an attitude like a dog, means not to get angry even when your guru despises or berates you. Many teachers have done that. They've treated their students, with much, I don't know, what looks like maybe abuse, but that person, they understood the karma of that person and how to work with that person. So we have to understand and think about things in non-worldly ways. There's, ways that are taught that we might not understand, but that are really to benefit us and to help us be liberated. And, oftentimes the hard truth is the truth we need to hear. So, it's hard. It's hard to really look at ourselves and be like, what is getting in my way? What can I do? Or, well, it's hard especially when we have attachment to who we think we are. And we think, I am a good person, or I'm a good student, or, I'm diligent, responsible, smart, whatever it is, when something gets pointed out that maybe makes that not as something you can hold on to. It's important. It's important to look at that, but not always easy either. It says, even if the instructors of the teachings seem to despise and to ignore those who want their teachings, do not challenge them. persist tirelessly and respectfully and diligently seek the teachings. The sixth, an attitude like a fairy, means not to tire of deeds for your teacher's sake, no matter how many times you engage in your teacher's activities. And this led into, it said, in particular, training in faith, the root. Faith is the prerequisite of all good qualities, a procreator of them like a mother, who then protects and increases them. It clears away doubts, frees you from the four rivers, ignorance, attachment, craving, and wrong views, and establishes you in the prosperous city of happiness and goodness. Faith cuts through gloom and clarifies the mind. It eliminates pride and is the root of respect. It is a jewel and a treasure. Like hands, it is the basis of gathering virtue. It is the best of feet for going to liberation. So we're developing faith in our teacher and in the teachings. He says, if you would ask, O Lord of secrets, how disciples should view masters, then I would answer that they should view them just as they view the Bhagawan. If the disciples view their masters in this way, they will always cultivate virtues. They will become Buddhas and benefit the entire world. So viewing our teachers as the Buddha, I mean, think about that when we're interacting. How little is the chance that we will do something that will hurt us or someone else? Pretty darn little. If, many teachers also have, might have some faults, but if we pay attention to their good qualities, then that's what we'll see. We pay attention to bad qualities, that's what we'll see, and that's what we'll act from. So never seize upon their faults, keeping their good qualities in mind. You will reach attainments. Seizing upon their faults, you will not. So once someone is your teacher, we look at someone and recognize their good qualities. This helps us and helps others who are learning. So I was thinking about just my personal growth in the 5 years that I've been here. And when I first came to Heartwood, I didn't really know Venerable very well. And, obviously I was just meeting her. And so I didn't know the teachings well enough to use much intelligence or discernment. But I have to say there was a resonance. I think we all can recognize a resonance of truth when we hear it, even if we don't really understand it in words. There was a resonance of truth.
Or like it.
Yeah. So being able to pay attention to that helps steer us to the resonance. So I wanted to know, wow, I mean, I really trust this teacher. Who is her teacher? And at that time, Buddha Master was not discussed much early on when I first got to Heartwood openly. So I asked around, I was like, who's Venerable's teacher? And I was told that it was His Holiness Dorje Shung Buddha III. And I was given the little blue book on the Dharma of cultivation. I asked some questions. I learned, that he was recognized as a Buddha. And at that time, I said, wow, my teacher's teacher is a Buddha? How lucky am I? This is incredible. So I was thinking back and realizing the door was wide open. There was no part of me that was like, I don't know, that seems a little weird. Or, So there were no doors closing that made that not something I could receive. And that's been maintained over these years. And because of that, I feel like that is why I'm still here. Because there have been moments where, we all feel very weak at times on the path of cultivation. But I trusted my teacher and I trusted my master, Buddha Master. And that foundation has been absolutely precious and necessary. All doors open. I also just wanted to, Bill, when I first came in today, he shared something with me that I wanted to see if he would just share with you. Would you mind doing that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just, had an encounter with Buddha 3 this morning and noticed how he had a look over the Orient, and he really does have a view. It's a full continent, and there's only 3 of them in the whole world. So, you know, him being who he is in this, that was just something I was looking at because I was involved a long time ago. And my father was, and I really couldn't tell you how it went, but it's built up so well, and the translations are different now. And,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that Buddha 3 fella has quite a few.
Yeah. You said you were asking him some questions, and
Yeah.
he came to you.
Yeah.
And he
it was
showed
like
you-
He looked over the top of you like he had been on
Mhm.
somebody, like he had a focus. And he was above me. And believe me, the Buddhas that they have within in China, they're huge. The one that I know of. And it was like this Buddha had, well, he was sitting
Mhm.
over me. I mean, I had been up for a while, but he came to me, and I've also addressed the Dalai Lama.
Mhm.
So, you know, for what I got out of it, and going through 5 years of you guys, and 2, 3 out there where I am, I'm truly grateful for what I've gained, because you just have to see how things grow.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much,
much.
Bill. Thank you so much. That struck me so much, and it was just so in tune with what we're kind of talking about today, because Bill has shown up with an open heart and no closed doors. And because of that, he's been listening, he's been applying the teachings, and he's showing the fruits of this practice. And it's a beautiful thing to see, and very inspiring to me. So thank you, Bill. Okay, so that was one of the foundations, one of the things that I was noticing that they're so necessary in our work on this path that that I think sometimes doesn't get as much attention as it needs for us to really make progress. We need to truly trust and rely on our teacher. Another situation this week came up, and I was with someone and found myself not acting in accord with my own aspiration. I was triggered and got mad, and it happened really fast, and I found myself defensive, and I found myself shutting down. I found myself judging. And then another friend shared with me that they have a tendency to allow aversion to arise and others to affect the stability and ease of their mind. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I was experiencing. How do we address these things? What is helpful? There's 84,000 methods, but I was contemplating what was helpful for me. So I wanted to kind of share a little of those thoughts. One thing that always occurs to me is Buddha Master saying, if you seek methods of liberation outside of your mind, you will be a corpse sent to the city of death. So that refers to me to blaming others and looking at external circumstances as our problem. So the first thing I wanted to do, because I knew right away that it was not my aspiration or what I wanted to continue to cultivate, is to look at my own mind. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but one of the things that we've been talking about as a group a little bit lately is the impersonal nature of karma. and how we're all just a collection of cause and effect since, the time of our coming together, beginningless time, as the Buddhists would say. So there are many things that impact us, things that we've done in this life and things that were done in the mind stream that were myriad lifetimes ago. And one thing that really helped me, and I've told some of you guys this, but I had someone tell me about the past life for me, most affecting this life. He said it's really, really strong with me in this life. But they said I was a brilliant war strategist, a general in an army, and samurai or Mongolian army. And I knew what was best for the greatest number of people as far as annexing and water and stuff like that. But I was very impatient in that life that people weren't getting up to speed. And we're like, why don't they see this? Why aren't they following through on my orders? And it contributed to a tendency towards impatience. I was like, So it was actually helpful to hear about that past life affecting this life, because I felt like, okay, we get frustrated with ourselves when we have an aspiration or we have an intention, and then we let ourselves down because something comes up, we get overwhelmed, we act in a way that we wouldn't like to act. But we have to recognize, I think, the power of this karma. So when that happens within us, or when that happens within someone else, it really isn't as personal as it feels. It's a collection of things that came from all over the place within that mind stream and within the environments of those mind streams and whatever bodies they were in. So what we have, helping us to understand that helps us be a little less hard on ourselves and a little bit less hard on other people. What we have control over is how we act in this moment. Right. And so sometimes, again, things will get ahead of us and we'll act in a way that we're not necessarily proud of. So reflecting on these things continuously, which I'll talk more about in a minute, is so important. So important. The nature of karma, the nature of cause and effect, the impermanent aspects of everything that we're experiencing, which I'll also talk about more in a minute. So I have a lot of different thoughts that are hard to know exactly how to share them. In the Mahamudra of Liberation, Buddha Master says that what the self is basically just a consciousness that is attached to a self. So pondering that, reflecting on that, what does that mean? Who am I really? Is so helpful. We protect and defend that self vigorously. Like in that moment with that person, I felt like I was right. And I didn't understand that person's actions or whatever. What is that? That's just attachment to me and an idea of what I think is right. But where did that idea come from? I don't know. Someone told me something sometime. I don't know. These are collections of things that really have no basis in anything. But I'm holding on to it super, super strong. So another thing that helps in retrospect, on the other side of it, I'll talk about in the moment in a minute, but on the other side of it, when I was reflecting afterwards, is that in these moments, we take things to be so real and solid. But there is nothing to hold on to at all. It is just a moment perishing into the next moment, perishing into the next moment. When I sat up here a second ago, I mean, that exists only in our memories and our minds, and it's colored differently by everyone. It exists nowhere but our minds. The next few minutes, the same. in this moment, there's really nothing because it's continuously passing. So what are we holding on to? There's really not anything. I noticed also that in cultivation, we're trying to find our way and we're trying to find our balance. So maybe if you were passive, you might find yourself being more like trying to get on the opposite side of that and might be more a little feisty or aggressive. Maybe if you were feisty or aggressive, you might find yourself veering on the side of more kind of passive, like, so maybe even not speaking. But that doesn't necessarily help either. Maybe you're not committing any negative karma in that moment, but probably other people can feel your energy, and that can also be harmful if you're trying to stuff and not process something or say something or acknowledge something within you. So that energy can be felt and it can be potentially harmful. So it also doesn't take into account that if you're not saying anything, how is that helping you or the other person? So perhaps the other person could benefit from some perspective that is grounded in a calm, stable, clear mind. So you want to be able to offer that too, because we're not just thinking about our own karmic retribution. We're thinking about everyone's. We want to help. That's the third vow in the comprehensive purifying precepts. So we train towards having presence of mind continuously and wise action. Not passive or doing nothing, but not acting out of divisiveness or anger, even righteous anger. What is best karmically for all in this moment? What do I have the capacity to do in this moment? And it's hard to see clearly when our emotions are escalated. I mean, we're just probably not going to have great judgment in those moments. So sometimes we just have to wait them out. Another aspect of this that I was considering was what Buddha Master says about forbearance. And this kind of goes to what I was just talking about. He says, I examine and analyze the truth that the foremost practice to realize the fruits of enlightenment is to patiently endure insult and adversity. If others did not slander me, did not get angry at me, and did not harm me, how could I develop the patient nature to endure insult and adversity and attain the realization of no birth? When I come across my adversaries, if I still give rise to revenge, anger, or hatred, that means I have not yet cut off attachment to self. So what do you guys think of when you think of forbearance? Anyone?
Patience,
Mm-hmm.
not reacting.
Mm-hmm. Not reacting.
Tolerating a slight
Mm-hmm.
from another.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the process of enduring or restraining.
Trying to
What's needed
understand.
to do that? Sorry.
I was just gonna say understanding, or at least attempting to understand the other person.
Mm. Nice. Thank you. All of those are really good.
I think it's
Go ahead,
just
Rob.
it's tamping down first thought that's colored by reaction based on what they're saying, doing. You know, it's that, like you said, it's that a consciousness that's attached to a self that's then working in that mode of rah, rah, and that's, you know, that just takes you someplace that is not in tune with your aspiration. But it's these micro moments, right? Forbearance isn't some big thing in the sky. It's like how we live it into it that moment when they say something I don't like, and then the whole engine's roaring up. It's like, can you just not let the engine roar?
That's good.
Or notice that the engine's roaring.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we go so quickly that it's out before we even know it's coming.
Right. Right.
So everything you said today sort of gives the flavor of how we walk out the practice.
Mhm.
And that flavor is one of, y- if we try to use tolerance, we try to use forbearance, these are all things that are taking action to not be, to, I think we almost miss it by all of those words. It really boils down to respect, how much you can respect another person,
Mhm.
how much, even in respect for the teacher, the instructions sound like, well, what, we in kindergarten? I don't have a mind, I can't think for myself, that's how we take it, cause we grown,
Mm.
right? But this is really cultivating a kind of respect for people that will command or demand from you that you relate to them in a certain way, and it's because that basic level of respect for others is not there that allows us to rail on them like we do, so just calling it what it is, like I'm one with no respect. And that's a way that can help us. We want to be understood when we make a mistake. We want to be understood when we, get upset. We want, just still reinforcing the self. But if at that moment that I feel like growling at you, I say, what is my commitment to respect for another person?
Mm.
Maybe his respect allows him to say anything to me. Does my respect allow me to say anything to him?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's really taking responsibility for our actions in that kind of way is what will really build us, and not making excuses for our behavior. At some level, you can make some excuse because you're training, you're like baby steps. But after a while, when you should be running, if you're still taking baby steps, it's time to stop excusing. It's just say, I'm a person with no respect.
Mm.
And I mean, that's how you're gonna grow. Those are the ones who get called to the high tasks, the high callings in the Dharma, the high works in the world and saving human beings. If we wanna be the ones who take out the trash all the time, we could just keep acting, and we can keep approaching our deficiencies in that way. If we want to be a leader, we have to cultivate the level of leadership qualities, and this is what it takes to do that. That's not everybody, but it's somebody.
Mhm.
Is it me? I want that for me. I want to be the one called for a great work, but I gotta be great to be great. So then, we don't have to tell everybody else that, but that's just something to think and ponder from within, if you want, like, how high up, what floor do you want to get off at,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was one of the insights that I had from the situation I was describing, was that I just need to be more respectful. That was really one of the insights.
But at that moment, you're working on yourself,
Mhm.
when I feel like working on you,
Mm.
working on myself if I have some, if I'm ferocious and I'm gonna ferociously work on you, then that's the time, like, maybe I could ferociously work on me.
Yeah.
And it'll do more for me and accomplishing what I wanna accomplish. Yeah, than working on you.
Mhm. Yeah. I am truly finding the joy and discovering the areas that that are limiting towards the true aspiration, and rectifying them. So what I was thinking of is that forbearance really does require right view. I mean, if you're just stuffing something, if you're just like trying to tolerate someone, but without having the right view and understanding of cause and effect, some of the things that we talked about, and the impermanence of the moment, the non-personal aspects of things, by shifting the mind, Buddha Master talks about shifting the mind repeatedly to concentrate on these things, the nature of karma, the nature of impermanence, the nature of this dreamlike illusory experience that we're having. If we can continue to do that, then we're going to be building those muscles, and we're going to be being able to, in the moment, you know, in time, in the moment, we'll be able to utilize those understandings to act in our aspiration. Another thing that I was noticing just in the moment remedies is the simple thing of, I know I spend a lot of time up here. So literally moving my energy from my head to my heart, just move that, and focusing on breathing and lengthening breathing, because when you lengthen and slow your breathing, your thoughts slow. And our thoughts are oftentimes erroneous and don't need to be paid attention to. So we can, I notice that when my thoughts do slow, there is a natural and pretty clear shift from any aspect of my own experience to the well-being of others. It's just right there. I just have to get out of the way. So when I can slow those thoughts, we're going to be right where we need to be. But I mean, everyone will have different methods that work for them. I've noticed for myself, I could use more cultivation around mindfulness. Like, this is some of the things that I've learned through this. And concentration, being continuously aware. You know, the Buddha talks about that all the time in the single excellent night, you know, just being continuously mindfully aware of what is happening in our bodies, in our minds, in our feelings. If we're not aware of it, then we're going to get caught in these places where, you know, they get ahead of us. But if we can stay aware and mindful, we're much more likely to be able to act in a positive and beneficial way. And I was just thinking about how that aspect of mindfulness and concentration does really kind of loop back to right view. And so there's really no linear process. It truly is all where the underpinnings need to really, really consider right view. The practice of watching the thoughts so we're not as fused with them, you know, because that's part of what happens too, is we're fused with the thinking that that's me and that I have to act on it. So, you know, that is so major. We just identify with our thoughts as us, and we're just slaves to them. That's not really, I mean, so looking closely at that, what is this? Is this necessary for me to follow? You know, can I just observe this, the rise and fall of this moment, and not engage in it in a way that can be erroneous? So this is kind of unrelated, but I found this reading from a writer that I trust that talks about how bodhisattvas show up and kind of how they work in the world. I thought it was helpful just to understand this cultivation that we're talking about, this right view that we're talking about, and how to maybe recognize these qualities in other people and in our own selves in the causal stage. So I really, really appreciated it. It's in a text called Bodhisattva Yoga. But it says, even with the immanence body attainment, they don't feel that they are at a completion stage of no more learning. That essentially means no more work to do for personal progress and no more work necessary for self-improvement. Rather, they work at always improving their skillfulness and how to proceed wisely according to principle in all their activities, how to act with wisdom and skillful effectiveness, kindness and compassion, and justice, fairness, righteousness to achieve the results they want. They devote themselves to perfection kaya, to also master their personality or character traits or qualities, their skills and other dharmas. Perfection kaya is a road of self-discipline and self-perfection that includes embracing the highest human values, ethics, virtues, and morality. It involves striving to always exhibit noble, consummate conduct. Thus, they work at always improving or elevating their character, personality, views and perspectives, knowledge and understanding, intentions and efforts. Bodhisattvas are always focused on self-correction and continuously work at refining or lifting to new heights their thinking and behavior through study, practice, and the mindfulness effort of self-observation of their thought stream and conduct. They are dedicated to self-rectification and active learning of whatever they must cultivate in themselves to move forward in self-refinement and personal growth, trying always to spiritualize their basic nature. As part of their devotion to perfection kaya, they try to transform any of their prior errant conditioning and bad habits, such as by transcending prejudicial thoughts geared to narrow divisions of caste, race, religion, nationality, gender, sexual orientation or creed, or any other distinguishing characteristic, so that they can help all beings without prejudice. They strive to detach from fixed concepts of morality, outdated or inapplicable traditions or codes of conduct, and rigid dogmas of purity in order to universally contribute to the spirit and well-being of mankind. They see all errant situations as diseases that should be cured, and because diseases are not the same, they recognize that remedies must vary according to the situation. They vow to master all the possible remedies, but most of all, to vow to delve in and apply them rather than to just know them. They try to avoid one-sidedness and transcend all their current patterns of feeling and thinking to employ better ones, not being wed to any except what is best for the situation at hand, as well as good for the intermediate term and long term too. They understand that as an embodied manifestation of the original essence that has consciousness, they are basically a dream body mind complex, a cosmic functioning, an aspect or even a process that can choose its own activities, and thus they devote themselves to mastering skillful intercession in various directions where they've decided to act as saviors to improve lives and liberate beings from suffering. Those are just a couple excerpts. But what I really liked about those excerpts were that it kind of helps you see that it's not just some perfected ghost somewhere out there that's doing all these great things. Like these are beings that manifest in physical form and that are continuously and always working on perfecting their minds and conduct for the benefit of other living beings. It's a continuous process, that really was very helpful to me to see that. It helps us be a little bit more patient with ourselves and our own learning and more excited about, the path itself and the many discoveries and aspects of, letting go, purifying, selfless acts, all those things that can come from just taking one step at a time towards that goal. And so I kind of wanted to just offer the opportunity to spend a few minutes in contemplation, and then we can open for discussion if you want to. But where do you notice closed doors? I'll say before I open this contemplation that in considering this open door thing, I kind of picture a big iron door at my heart. And, there are many times where I felt closed doors. The time when I came in contact with Heartwood and Buddha Master, there was an open door, Venerable. But I notice the benefits of the open door. How can there ever be any poor outcome from opening the door to the qualities of excellence that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and that the Dharma provides. There can be no possible negative outcome. But there can be a negative outcome to closing the doors and thinking with our little ordinary minds that I know better. So when I was in my practice this morning, I just, I have a Yidam practice. And in my practice, I said, I'm fully opening the door to you, my Yidam. I'm fully opening myself to you. And for some, because of that shift, there was more of a true experience of merging. And it wasn't with a being, it was with kind of a dissolving and everything. But it was more of, it's hard to describe, but I felt like that was necessary, that opening was necessary to take that step. And it is in everything that we do in this work. So where do you notice closed doors? What is keeping the doors closed? What beliefs or fears? You can just take a minute and sit with this. Where do those beliefs or fears come from? And what are they made of? And just imagine for a moment how it might feel to open the door all the way and tear that door off the hinges so it can't close again. Okay. Something that you might want to spend a little time with. That again, I've just personally found helpful. Wanted to share with you. And does anybody have any comments or corrections or? Yeah.
Having this conversation with Nancy first thing this morning, it's like, my aging mind. My aging mind doesn't allow me to have the level of mindfulness that I would like to have. The clarity, the mindfulness that I like to have. Yeah, it's my aging mind, the door. And I do have an aging mind.
How do you notice your the aging mind getting in the way?
I think there's a little level of confusion that I have, more of a level of like confusion and also the ability to like a dullness. Yeah, those two. Like a fuzzy dullness.
That's where the mindfulness can bring about more of a sharpness because you're really letting go of all the cloudy thoughts of confusion and just.
But my belief that I have an aging mind prevents me from being mindful. So it's like kind of like flip-flop back and forth, right?
Yeah, nice insight.
Yeah. I wasn't kidding.
So sometimes that crosses my mind, not that often now, but earlier times it did, and I would ask myself, no, well, that really clear discriminating mind that I think I had before, did it ever help me overcome living and dying? No, it didn't. And so, I don't give that much credence to it. And what I'm finding is that I can approach things that come up in life now because I no longer think I have that sharp discriminating mind, because in the hierarchy of things that's important to me, overcoming life and death awakening, is ticking up higher and higher on my list. So yes, I might not remember everything, from one day to the next, or I might, not be as sharp business wise, or I might, but that only helps me here, and I really have a glimpse of how short a human life is. So it's like, it's not as sharp compared to what, what do we compare it to?
Right.
And it helps us to be in accord with the truth of aging.
Yeah, Bobby.
There's also,
Except aging doesn't come to this one right here.
Okay.
Without a doubt, anytime I think about aging being an absolute fact, I just think about
there's also a beauty and a wisdom that takes place in that state. That, those of us who feel like we're getting a little older and the mind is working at a different pace, it's not necessarily a pace that is detrimental in any way, or, missing the target. It may be hitting the target even better. I mean, I think of a movie, Last of the Mohicans. Towards the end, the Indian chief is sitting there. He's a very old guy, and he says, the white men are coming, and what are the Hurons to do, And just the way he said that, and I've often thought of that, like, what are we to do? Anyway, just sitting with that thought, and there's wisdom there, that our more acute minds, when we were, well, I think my mind's still pretty acute, wait a minute. But, it's just a different pace, rather than something that's missing more, it may even be seeing.
I love that, Bobby. I mean, we've been talking about prajna and how prajna is not through our ordinary mind. In fact, we have to release our ordinary mind to access it. We need to let go of it to create the space where that can be known. And so in a way, some of that can be a help. Holding on to that thinking mind a little less,
Bhusita,
Yeah,
may I share?
please.
Compassion, mercy, grace, these things all kind of live interconnected. And one of the things that I've gotten from my practice is to be able to be more stable in myself, so I don't project my own mind upon other people as much, But one of the things that I'm really, like we talked about, forbearance is like this tamping down of self, But sometimes forbearance is uprooting a whole directionality that our mind goes in relationship to how people act around a particular thing. Like my wife is involved in doing some work on herself now, and she's in a really tender space, and instead of being able to hold that mind state with compassion, I'm noticing there's a part of me that just like doesn't have time for it, that like shuts off or closes down into relation to this. And like, this is so not in tune with the aspiration which I have for myself, which is, really to be a benefit for all people. And I can do that outside my house pretty well, right? But right there in our own life, we get stuck sometimes. And I've had to really kind of look at this and be like, where is this shutting down coming from? And what I realized is that, when I was a child, my brother was very unwell, and there was times where I would watch his mind do really I don't know, confusing, destructive, harmful things, and I would go to my father and be like, I beat him in a game, so he fucking smashed excuse my language, he smashed the video game console. Like, I don't understand, this isn't right. And he'd just be like, yeah, it's fine, just soldier on, you know And so, like, this callousness to really be with the tenderness of another person while they're suffering, specifically somebody that you deeply love and care for, And I'm seeing that part of the forbearance is to forgive deeply on a level for my father, for myself, and be able to open up to a place where you can hold somebody else's pain or mind state and not have to fix it or heal it, but just to be with them fully where they are. But it requires like the digesting of these other parts of ourselves, And this practice always takes us back into tender ground. And we can't get stuck there in like the flagellation, but we got to see it before we let go of it, Because what's the good of having a stable mind if you can't offer that to somebody else when they're unstable, you know? So in answer to your question about opening up, that's like the next thing that I'm working on. Opening up is really to be able uh, to have mercy, to have compassion, for this person that I care deeply about when they're extremely emotionally dysregulated, instead of judging them and then having that spin out into something that's not in tune with my aspiration at all. And it requires opening beyond that part that wants to shut down when things are emotionally regulated, because that's the go-to place. That's the groove in the record,
Yeah, that's a good example of using mindful awareness and honesty to just really to be present with what's coming up, know what you usually do, know how it tends to go, and acknowledging what's happening in you with compassion and allowing for a new way. That's a great example.
I think you just said it, having compassion and loving kindness for ourselves
Mhm.
has to come first. Otherwise, we're just pretending when we give it to others.
Yeah.
So really be kind to ourselves.
Mhm.
I just did something shitty. Okay, I just did something shitty. I don't intend to do it again.
Mhm.
That's all there needs to be.
Yeah.
Simplify, simplify, simplify. And roll it on and on and on and on and on. Then you lost yourself to the mind.
Yeah. You've closed one of those little doors.
There you go, with compassion and determination to make the change.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else you want to say, Venerable?
I can see, oh, sorry. I can see how spiritual pride is such a sticky thing, because as we progress, we're like, ooh, I'm getting good, and then we make a mistake, and then we close ourselves off because it hurts. Cause like, how can I do that? You know what I mean? So even good could even pursuing goodness is like a trap. It's such a trap, like, oh my God. You just
Especially for a monastic.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, cause you don't, it's
A
not supposed to become
layperson,
your
you make
identity.
mistakes, you have to be on another level, right? Isn't that
No,
pressure?
that has been a big thing to
I
look
think
at.
part of the pressure is when you're monastic, it's not just your life, it's everyone else's.
Yeah.
And so like, you're no longer just living your life for yourself. You go, you don't like go back home and you're in your own space. I can cook what I want. and I can watch what I want. It's like everyone's watching. You know, and so like that's kind of the difference is it's no longer your life.
Yeah, you carry more weight, for sure. All of you. Proceed.
Mhm.
But maybe we all should think that it's our responsibility to carry that much weight for everyone. Right? Even without a robe. You know, we all living beings, like we say that all the time, right? That's what we're focusing on.
Thank you, everybody. Anybody like to offer merit?
Very well practice here today. Benefit living beings everywhere. May all living beings learn to practice forbearance. But not only tolerance of others, but to use others' response and reaction to them to inform how they might correct their own behavior. In this way, they become more peaceful and free over time, and so do everyone they encounter. May all be well with everyone.
So we don't lose sight of today's lesson on respect for the Dharma and respect for the teacher. Maybe we can reflect this week on what is our real view on that? What is our level of respect? And how we think it might affect the effects of the Dharma manifesting in our life. You know, when we don't do what we want to do and we do what we don't want to do, how, you know, how, if we can make a correlation between our progress and our respect for the Dharma and see if we can see some areas there that we can boost that we can get better, And it takes concentrated reflection to be able to do that. We talk about the Bodhisattva vow, and we're basically surrendering our life. We're saying our life is not our own. You know, so on one hand, I can't be, you know, constantly saying I take up the Bodhisattva aspiration and not give you my life. We'll walk, but we won't advance. We'll just be walking in place. And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, someone made some announcements and I'll reiterate that we'll have Dharma study on Tuesday, but after that we will be closed through Sunday of next week. And I hope everybody has a wonderful time over the next week.